Hey guys, what's happening? Tong here. Today I'm going to show you guys three more UMPCs that I own, and these are going to be the smaller ones. So you've already seen the bigger ones in some of my other reviews. The first one I'm going to show you is the Sony VAIO UX, which you've seen in some of my other videos, but you haven't really seen it run full Windows XP yet. And here it is running full Windows XP. This is one of the more powerful UMPCs ever made. Sony made this one back in 2006 and 2007, and I have the limited 007 limited edition, which is only 500 ever made. So this one is one of the more rare ones, and it runs with the Windows XP and Core processor, Core Solo processor, and some people have even modded it to run a full Core 2 Duo processor, which would make it the most powerful UMPC out there. Even though this is like 8 or 9 years old, it's still cool to see this thing work. And yeah, it's running full Windows XP and with all the dated elements as well. So most Microsoft stopped supporting Windows XP, so it's not really a good idea to run it, but here it is running on a 2006 machine. And yeah, this is Sony VAIO UX. You guys have already seen in my other review, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but here it is running full Windows XP. Okay, so next PC I want to show you, UMPC, is the OQO Model 2. And this one also runs Windows Vista. And it's not as powerful as the Sony VAIO UX because it has a VIA processor. And VIA processors are not well known, and generally they don't perform as well as Intel processors do. Although they are x86, so they run Windows and all that stuff. But in terms of performance, it's not quite as good as the Intel. However, I will say that this is a bit smaller and lighter than the Sony VAIO UX. If you compare the two, you can see how thick the VAIO UX is compared to the OQO Model 2. I mean, the OQO Model 2 is by no means slim. It's not slim at all, but compared to the Sony VAIO UX, it is slimmer and lighter. So I think with this computer, the Sony VAIO UX, I can barely fit it in my pocket, whereas with the OQO Model 2, I can fit in my pocket more easily, for sure. And yeah, this is it running Windows Vista Ultimate. And yeah, it has the same slide-up keyboard that the VAIO UX has. Although I would say the OQO keyboard is better because of the flat keys on the Sony VAIO UX is so flat, so it's really hard to type on it. But with the OQO Model 2, it has the keys stick up are raised a bit, so it's easier to type. And you have the same right click and left click here, zoom in, zoom out, the same track keypad here on the UX. You have it here on the OQO. You have scrolling here on the screen itself. This is a touch screen just like the VAIO UX. And in terms of ports, you can see that this has one USB port just like the VAIO UX, which also has one USB port. And let's see, removable battery, it has that going for it as well, which the VAIO UX also has. Headphone jack and an HDMI port, which is really nice. This is the only UMPC I know of that has a HDMI port, a full one. And the other ones, they all come with a VGA port or a dongle, I believe. But this one comes with a full HDMI port, which was ahead of its time because it wasn't that popular back in 2007 when it came out. So I give OQO credit for that. But yeah, this is the OQO Model 2. And in terms of performance, the VAIO UX is going to beat it. But in terms of portability and typing, I would say the OQO Model 2 is better. And I really appreciate the full HDMI port as well as the expansion port here, which I'm using as I'm charging it right now, but it's also used as an expansion slot. You can dock it onto the station and then you have like a DVD drive and stuff on it. And that's about it. This isn't made anymore. Obviously, UMPCs aren't made anymore, but out of these two, you can find them both easily on eBay. I would say the OQO is a little bit more rare and more usually sells for a little bit higher as well. And due to the company not even existing anymore, OQO just made this, the Model 1, 1 Plus, I think, and then the one, and then the 2, and then the 2 Plus, which actually never came out, and then they went bankrupt in 2009. So it's really hard to even find the company anymore. Whereas Sony is still going. They're not doing as well, obviously, but they're still there. And the OQO is not, so which makes it a little bit more of a collector's piece. And yeah, so this is the OQO and the Sony VAIO UX, and they both came out around 2006, 2007. The last UMPC I'm going to show you that's small is the most rarest out of the three, I believe. This is called the OpenPandora, and I would call this a UMPC, even though some people would like to call it a game console, because it has these controllers right here. It has kind of this movement controller, which is an analog stick, and you have another analog stick right here. And some people like to call this actually a gaming console, which I don't think does it justice. This is more of a UMPC because it does everything. This runs a Linux distribution, a custom Linux distribution, Angstrom, I believe, and it's small and it's a full computer. It's not just for playing games and stuff. You could play games for sure. You can run emulators on it. You can run a DOS emulator. You can run like a Atari emulator, SNES, a GBA, N64, DS, what have you. You can run all those emulators and you can play it with these controls. But you can do so much more with it because it's a Linux machine. And this is like a pocket Linux computer. Definitely smaller than the Pepperpad 3, which is a much bigger UMPC. But if you want like a small portable Linux box, this is the way to go. And this is made by a company called OpenPandora, and their website is actually called Dragonbox. But it's actually made by a team of enthusiasts who are dedicated to this old retro school gaming thing, and they made this console kind of by themselves. Like it's funded, and they kind of made this one and shipped it out to backers and in a kind of pre-Kickstarter kind of way. And this one came out in 2012, which is not definitely more recent than the OQO and the Sony VAIO, which came out in like the mid 2000s, whereas this one came out in the 2010s. So this is definitely newer, but yeah, for a pocket Linux console, this is pretty cool. I'm going to show you a trick with this. You can actually use the packet managers to download whatever you want for this. So I can go to PND Manager and run this. Alright guys, so this is OpenPandora running PND Manager, and you can see the last updated, highest rated apps on here, which are all Pandora apps, or actually Angstrom Linux distribution apps, and people can all develop for this system. These are basically all Linux apps. You can go to a category like games, for example, which is probably really popular. You can see all these different Linux apps that you can download and use with this computer, which is really cool. So it has all these apps and packages for it, which is really fun. So yeah, then after you download it, you can actually go and you can run it. You can have all these different apps for it. So this is a PND Manager where you find the apps, but after you have it, it'll appear in the menu, and then you can have anything basically. This thing does a lot. So it has a terminal, it has like programming software, it's like Python in here, which is a programming language. Stuff for development. You can run a lot of different emulators on it. I have DOSBox, I have Apple II emulator, an Altair emulator, Commodore 64, even a freaking Atari Jaguar emulator. It's all on here. You can all download it on here, and then you have ported games, which a lot of people port different games to the OpenPandora. You guys see here, there's like Minecraft, there's Ultima, Zelda. People ported all these DOS games to it, and Bomberman, I think. Yeah, there's a lot of different apps. Even StarCraft, which I'm surprised. They got even StarCraft on here, and Red Alert, which is cool. And yeah, there's all sorts of things you can do on this PC, which is cool. And even like in Wireshark and a Usenet client and FTP client, a Bitcoin miner, BitTorrent Sync, which is my old company. It's nice to see that on there. Emule, Putty, that's all really cool. And yeah, you can get basically any kind of app on here which are for this Linux distribution. And that's the cool thing about this device is that this is a Pocket Linux device. It's not just a gaming console. It can run anything as a Linux computer can run, which is really sweet. And for example, let's just show you a game in action. Let's run Ken's Labyrinth. You see this old DOS classic in action. I used to play this game when I was young. It's one of the first 3D games to come out, along with Catacomb Abyss and Wolfenstein 3D. A lot of people don't know about Ken's Labyrinth, but it is one of the first 3D games to come out. There we go. Ouch. Ooh yeah. Comes with full sound, everything. I love it. Don't hurt me. I like this game. It's really like fun and colorful and stuff. You can buy stuff from the vending machine. Really ahead of its time, I think. And it's made by some guy who made the build engine, which would later become famous from Duke Nukem 3D. It's the same engine used by Duke 3D. But yeah, this is the OpenPandora. And let me actually escape out of here. Okay. Yes. Okay. There. So yeah, this console is pretty hard to find. I had to go on the forums to find it, and ask someone to actually sell it to me. So that's how rare this thing is. But yeah, I think it's pretty unique as its own. It's a good modding tool. A lot of hackers use this to develop their own software. Being a Linux box, obviously, it's very hackable. And comes with two SD card slots, one of which is used to hold all the apps and software you install for it, and all your ROMs or emulators on there. Your headphone jack, volume switch, power button, a battery, full-size USB port, mini USB port, and mini HDMI as well, and trigger buttons for the gaming console aspect of things. And yeah, that's the OpenPandora. This is the console I talked about the most because I thought it was the most exciting out of the three. But yeah, OpenPandora, OQO Model 2, and the Sony VAIO UX. In terms of weight slash size, the VAIO UX is going to be the heaviest and biggest, followed by the OQO Model 2, followed by the OpenPandora, which in my opinion is the lightest out of the three. And yeah, that's it. These are three small UMPCs. Let me know if you have any comments or questions. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, how's it going? Tong here. Today we'll be reviewing two more UMPCs. The first one I want to show is the Samsung Q1 Ultra Premium. So back in 2007, when UMPCs were all the craze back then, Samsung came out with one of the first UMPCs, the Samsung Q1, and they improved upon it by releasing the subsequent iterations, which improved on that one. And this one is the Ultra Premium, which is the last iteration of it, the most powerful version of that. And as you can see, this model adds the QWERTY keyboards on the side, kind of as a split keyboard. So that's kind of unique, something that you don't see on PCs these days. And compared to the other UMPCs back in the day, like the Sony VAIO UX, which I've demonstrated before, and also in the OQO and other PCs, it's quite big and quite heavy. Like the screen is 7 inches, so this is a big screen, but this the same as a tablet these days, and it runs full Windows XP. And yeah, this is how they were like back then. This PC came out in what? The original one came out in 2006 or 7, I believe, and this one came out in like 2009. And it runs on an Intel Core Solo processor. You can see that. Intel Core Solo is basically the single-core version of the Intel Core Duo, which was the first dual-core processor. And That means that in terms of ultra mobile PCs, in terms of UMPCs, they're not that powerful. And actually, the Intel Core Solo is one of the more powerful UMPCs that was released back then. So this one is actually quite powerful for its time. As most of the UMPCs back then, I believe, were running low power Intel A110s and Intel Atoms and VIA processors and stuff, but this one was running an Intel Core Solo, which is a full laptop processor, not a low wattage processor. So it's quite powerful for the time. So as I said before, this thing is quite big for a UMPC, a little bit heavy. It's got the split keyboard, which is really cool. Webcam. It's got a mouse here. It's a little trackpad mouse and up and down buttons here, and left right click for the mouse. Runs full Windows XP. I don't need you to show that. I'm sure you all seen Windows XP before. USB port, full size on top with an SD card slot, headphone jack, a removable battery on the back, and a kickstand, which is nice. So if you flip this out like this, you can actually, sit it like this and watch movies with it, which is a nice touch. Most PCs didn't come with that those days, but it's nice to have it. And it has a camera on the back as well. So yeah, this is the Samsung Q1 Ultra Premium, the only UMPC that I know of that is upgradable to 2 gigs of RAM, which is a lot more than the other ones. It's better than the VAIO UX, the OQO Model 2, and etc., which max out at 1 gig. And a fingerprint reader, which is a nice touch as well. And yeah, and then on the side here is the power button, zoom, and then you have the AC adapter jack. And very interestingly, you have a full-size VGA port, another USB port, so in total 2, and a full-size Ethernet port, which you don't even get these days with Ultrabooks, So this PC actually comes with quite a bit of ports, which is pretty cool. I mean, most Ultrabooks these days don't even come with a full-size Ethernet. But yeah, that's a Samsung Q1 UP. Next, we have another UMPC that's very similar. This is called the Pepperpad 3. What's unique about this one is that, like the Samsung Q1 Ultra Premium, it has the split keyboard, so that's what's similar about it, and also has a 7/8 screen, so that's similar to the the Samsung Q1. But instead of running Windows XP, it runs Linux, and that's very special about it because most UMPCs they ran Windows, they didn't run other operating systems, and this one ran Linux, which is really cool, which means that you can hack it and you can install all your custom apps and programs, Linux apps on top of that, and run your own terminal and stuff like that, which is really cool. You can modify it as with other Linux devices. And yeah, it's about the same size and weight if you compare it to the Samsung Q1. I would say that they're around the same weight. The Samsung Q1 is a little bit smaller actually. The Pepperpad 3 is just massive, but they're actually around the same weight because this one is actually slightly thinner than the Q1. The Q1 is quite thick. So in terms of weight, they actually even out because this one is bigger, but it's thinner. And like the Q1, it also has a kickstand on the back. You can prop it down like this, rest it, so you can watch your movies and stuff. Unlike the Q1, this runs a Core Solo, right? The Q1 runs a Core Solo, but unlike the Q1, this runs only an Intel A110, which is an 800 megahertz processor, the predecessor of the Intel Atom, which means that it's not that powerful. But then again, it is running Linux, which means that in everyday use, you probably won't notice that much of a difference because Windows often has a higher requirement for running than Linux. So in terms of speed, they actually are very similar. What you expect, Windows under Intel Core Solo would be quite fast, but the A110 under Linux is actually not bad either. And you have a webcam here as well. You have the same directional trackpads. You have a scroll button here. You can scroll through your lists and web pages, and speakers, stereo speakers, and a stylus. And that's it, really. We don't have the same number of ports like as in the Q1. So on the side here, we have a nice USB port, and we have a micro USB port here, which is actually a mini I think that is actually a mini USB port. So we have a USB full size and a mini. And on the side here we have a display out, a headphone jack, and the microphone jack. So yeah, it doesn't come with the same amount of ports that the Q1 comes with, and the AC adapter here. It doesn't come with a full-size Ethernet port like the Q1 comes with, and it doesn't have two USB ports like the Q1, or an SD card slot for that matter. So I would say the Q1 actually wins out in terms of performance and features, whereas the PepperPad 3 is more of a unique PC. This is quite rare actually to even find one. I managed to find this one on eBay, but I wish I could share the operating system, but I have troubles booting it up, and I might make another video later if I figure out how to fix that. But yeah, the PepperPad 3 is definitely unique in that it runs Linux, and not many pocketable computers or UMPCs ran Linux. That's the main interesting thing about this PC, and it's made by a South Korean company, made in South Korea. So yeah, but other than that, I would say for everyday thing, the Q1 is better. It has a faster processor, it has more ports, runs Windows, which definitely has more apps than Linux. It's not as hackable as Linux is, but for everyday things, Windows definitely has, being an x86 processor, it can run a full gamut of apps and software. So that's it. This is the PepperPad 3, and this is the Samsung Q1. Very similar, yet different in many ways. And I hope you enjoyed this look at the comparison between the two. Let me know if you have any questions. I forgot to mention that the PepperPad 3 also comes with only 256 megs of RAM, which is quite low, especially if you compare it to the full 2 gigs of the Samsung Q1. But like I said, with Linux, it has lower requirements, and everyday use, you can get by on it, although obviously it's not 2 gigs. And they came out in almost the same year, actually. This one came out in 2007, the same year as the first Q1, whereas the Q1 Ultra Premium came out in 2009. And that's it. They have the same size screen, same resolution, and about the same weight, and similar price, I believe, when they came out as well. So, although I think the Q1 Ultra Premium was a little bit more expensive. And let me know if you have any questions. Hey guys, Tong again. This time I'm going to review the last of my UMPCs. Yay, final lap of UMPCs, and these ones are the most rarest out of my UMPCs. So enjoy. I've saved the best for last. My last two. This one is the HTC Shift X9500. Extremely hard to find on eBay, but I finally found it. This came out in 2007, about the same time as the OQO and the Samsung Q1 and the PepperPad and all these other UMPCs, which is the time it became popular. But what's interesting about it is this tilt design. See? So like the OQO and Sony VAIO UX, it tilts like this, so it slides up to reveal a keyboard. But unlike those other ones, the actual display actually tilts up like this. And it's interesting because this UMPC is kind of like a combination of the Samsung Q1 / Viliv S5 and a combination with the OQO Model 2 and the Sony VAIO UX in terms of design. It has this huge 7-inch screen, and at the same time it has this slide tilt up and out keyboard, which is very interesting. And it runs Windows Vista. Of course, at the time that was the new operating system at the time it came out. And yeah, you can use it. If you tuck away the keyboard, you can use it as a tablet. You see, as a webcam, it has a left and right click on the mouse. This one is a screen rotate, I think, and a wireless, and a fingerprint reader, which is always appreciated on UMPCs, and an optical track point, which, as I've reviewed before in my Sharp Netwalker video, I don't really like that much. I prefer the nubs instead. But it has that. It has a full-size VGA port on the back. Not much there. It doesn't have a stand. I'm disappointed it doesn't have a stand like the Samsung Q1 or the PepperPad, but and it's quite heavy. I would say it is lighter than the other 7 inchers. It's lighter than the PepperPad and Q1, but it's definitely not as light as the OQO Model 2 or the Sony VAIO UX. But the screen is bigger, so that's probably why. And yeah, not much to say about it. I say the typing experience on this is probably the best out of all the UMPCs I've done, because I can put it like this and just type it as in a laptop. As with my other UMPCs, I have to hold it like some kind of gaming console, and then tap it while I'm standing up or something, and it feels kind of weird. Whereas with this one, I can actually use it like a laptop, like a full laptop, and just prop it up and then type on it like this, which is, it's definitely more enjoyable if you're doing actual like productive work on this. Say you're running Microsoft Word, or you're writing a document or an Excel sheet or something, and you definitely want to type it like this instead of holding it in your hands like some kind of console or something. I don't really appreciate that as much. But this one, the typing experience is pretty good. I think the best out of the UMPCs that I have. But yeah, this is the HTC Shift X 7500. The processor is an A110, which is the same as the Q1 when it came out, but not as great as the Q1 Ultra Premium. The processor is not even as good as an Intel Atom, actually, but it does its job. I mean, under this PC, it's doable. It's okay. It's better than the VIA in the OQO Model 2 for sure. And it's on par with the netbook, but that's what you get for 2007 anyway. In terms of ports, you have a headphone jack on the side here, and you have one USB port, unfortunately just one, but that's the normal standard for UMPCs anyway. And an AC adapter jack, and this is a power switch, and a SD card slot. So you get the bare minimums with this one. It doesn't come with 2 USB ports like the Q1. I think the Q1 comes with the most ports out of all of them I've seen. But this one is okay. I mean, full-size VGA is always appreciated, but no kickstand and no second USB port. I'm a little bit disappointed about that. However, has a good typing experience. So this is the HTC Shift X9500, one of the more rare ones. And the second one I'm about to show you is the Toshiba Libretto W100. This is actually my rarest UMPC in my collection. I think even rarer than my OpenPandora, which is quite interesting because so the history of the Toshiba Libretto is that they were a line of handheld PCs that Toshiba made back in the 90s, and they revived it back in 2010 to release one last version called the W100, and here it is. This is one of the most unique PCs I have, and it is one of the last UMPCs that came out. It came out when netbooks started becoming popular, but it is different than a netbook. So let me show you what I mean. This PC actually has 2 touchscreens. Yes, it has no keyboard. It has well, it has no physical keyboard. It has a virtual keyboard, which is interesting. It has this touchscreen keyboard, which you're used to by now, because if you use iPads and smartphones, you know how virtual keyboards work. But back in the day, 2010, and now, you've never seen an actual PC running Windows that has a virtual keyboard like this. And this runs for Windows 7. It has a full Intel Pentium processor, which is very interesting. This is the first one that I've seen have a Pentium processor. Most of the ones have a Core processor. In the case of the Samsung Q1 Ultra Premium or the Sony VAIO UX that come with Core processors, or an Intel Atom processor, or the Intel A110. But this one has a full Intel Pentium processor, which is very interesting. And yeah, I'll show you how it looks like actually. I'm going to boot it up, and I'm going to show you how this virtual keyboard works, because this is definitely a very unique PC, and very few of them were ever made, making this one of the rarest ones you can find. A little bit about the specs here. It's running Intel Pentium. I think it is an ultra low voltage one, and in terms of RAM and memory, I think it comes with 2 gigs of RAM, I believe, which is the same as the Sony VAIO P or the Fujitsu UH100, which I also reviewed before. Yeah, so it's about the same as the netbook. And it runs Windows 7 Home Premium, and if you look at the ports, has just one USB port, which is unfortunate. I would like to see two. One USB port, one headphone jack right here, removable battery on the bottom, AC adapter port, and that's it. It's very lacking in a micro SD slot. So it's kind of lacking in terms of ports. About the same as an average netbook, or even less actually, since it doesn't have a VGA port. Basically, this is a dual touchscreen PC, 7-incher. It runs Intel Pentium dual core. Actually, this is one of the few UMPCs that has a dual core processor. But yeah, it has a dual core processor and has dual touchscreens, which is really unique because the bottom one is actually used for a keyboard, and the top one is used for normal viewing. But actually, you can use both of them. So you can actually drag stuff from the top down to the bottom and vice versa. I can switch my little keyboard layout here, which is pretty cool. I can change it to numpad or split keyboard or just regular keyboard, expanded keyboard, etc. It's all there. This is a really cool skin as well. This is a skin of Windows 7, but as you can see, it's kind of like Mac OS X. If you look down at the bottom here, okay. See, this icons down at the bottom looks a little bit like OS X actually. Kind of reminds me of that. So it's a really cool skin, and you have like these real-time updates here that tells you about your hard drive, your uptime, your CPU, and your RAM. That's pretty cool. You can move it around and stuff. You have news feed up here, a little news feed. In addition, you have your regular Windows 7 type menu up here, which is pretty cool. So I can launch like Firefox. You can see that I have NBC News open here, and I can actually move this down below to the screen below if I wanted to. See, I can move it to the screen below, but I can keep it up here. It's fine. The other thing I didn't get to show is this thing actually can rotate into portrait mode. So if I put up like this, okay, so if I put it up like this, it actually puts it into portrait mode, and this is a very ebook friendly way to view web pages and read articles and ebooks and stuff. You can just flip through the articles like this vertically, which is pretty cool. So I didn't get to show that either. But yeah, this has a accelerometer, so it can detect which direction you're facing, which is pretty cool. The other one other gadget that I would like to show that has this dual screen design that may seem familiar to some of you guys is the Sony Tablet P, which has a very similar dual screen design. You can say that they're kind of like brothers right here, right? You got a tablet here with dual screens, and then you got a laptop here with dual screens. There's an even bigger laptop that has dual screens. I think it's the Acer Iconia 1460, I think, with 1620. One of the Acer Iconias also has a dual screen, and it's 14 inches, which means it's even bigger. But I like micro PCs, so I like my PC small and compact. So anyways, that is the Toshiba Libretto W100, and both of these are pretty unique because they have the dual screen design. And this runs a good old Pentium M processor, which is actually a lot more powerful than most UMPCs. Most UMPCs run Intel Atom, which is severely underpowered, as most of you know. Hey guys, how's it going? Today I just want to finish off my UMPC reviews. As people who have watched my YouTube channel know, I'm a really big fan of gadgets and a really big fan of micro PCs, which are UMPCs. And I have a few more UMPCs to finish off, and after this, that will be like the majority of UMPCs will be in my collection. So first of all, this is the Toshiba Libretto W100. I've shown it in a few other of my videos before. But I just want to finish this review off. I didn't get to finish it properly in my other review. Basically, this is a dual touchscreen PC, 7-incher. It runs Intel Pentium dual core. Actually, this is one of the few UMPCs that has a dual core processor. But yeah, it has a dual core processor and has dual touchscreens, which is really unique because the bottom one is actually used for a keyboard, and the top one is used for normal viewing. But actually, you can use both of them. So you can actually drag stuff from the top down to the bottom and vice versa. I gonna switch my little keyboard layout here, which is pretty cool. I can change it to numpad or split keyboard or just regular keyboard, expanded keyboard, etc. It's all there. This is a really cool skin as well. This is a skin of Windows 7, but as you can see, it's kind of like Mac OS X. If you look down at the bottom here, okay, see these icons down at the bottom looks a little bit like OS X actually. Kind of reminds me of that. So it's a really cool skin, and you have like these real-time updates here that tells you about your hard drive, your uptime, your CPU, and your RAM. That's pretty cool. You can move it around and stuff. You have news feed up here, a little news feed. In addition, you have your regular Windows 7 type menu up here, which is pretty cool. So I can launch like Firefox. You can see that I have NBC News open here, and I can actually move this down below to the screen below if I wanted to. See, I can move it to the screen below, but I can keep it up here. It's fine. The other thing I didn't get to show is this thing actually can rotate into portrait mode. So if I put up like this, okay, so if I put it up like this, it actually puts it into portrait mode, and this is a very ebook friendly way to view web pages and read articles and ebooks and stuff. You can just flip through the articles like this vertically, which is pretty cool. So I didn't get to show that either. But yeah, this has a accelerometer, so it can detect which direction you're facing, which is pretty cool. The other one other gadget that I would like to show that has this dual screen design that may seem familiar to some of you guys is the Sony Tablet P, which has a very similar dual screen design. You can say that they're kind of like brothers right here, right? You got a tablet here with dual screens, and then you got a laptop here with dual screens. There's an even bigger laptop that has dual screens. I think it's the Acer Iconia 1460, I think. Was 1620. One of the Acer Iconias also has a dual screen, and it's 14 inches, which means it's even bigger. But I like micro PCs, so I like my PC small and compact. So anyways, that is the Toshiba Libretto W100, and both of these are pretty unique because they have the dual screen design. And this runs a good old Pentium M processor, which is actually a lot more powerful than most UMPCs. Most UMPCs run Intel Atom, which is severely underpowered, as most of you know. Okay, so on to the other UMPC reviews. First up, I have the Viliv S7, and I'd like to show you guys the iRiver PMC as well. And I'm putting these two guys together because they're really similar. So the iRiver PMC is a portable media center, and it's very, very similar to the Philips PMC that I reviewed before. See this one? They both have these little Windows Media XP kind of icon here, and that's because when Windows XP came out with the Media Center edition back, I think in 2002 and 2005, I remember Windows Media Center, and they got rid of it in Windows 10. But anyways, if you had Windows Media Center, you can hook it up to your TV, and then you can play like TV shows, recorded TVs, movies, etc. And the portable media center was designed to play all your files from your Windows Media Player, so it syncs with your media player, with your Windows Media Player, the same way that your iPad would sync to your iTunes now. So before Zune, before Microsoft had the Zune, which was also a failure, they had the portable media center kind of initiative, and they had these things sync up to your Windows Media Player. But it didn't really take off because you had to convert a bunch of files, and it didn't really, it wasn't really that great as, well, iTunes you do have to convert a lot of files too, because it doesn't accept every format, but Apple at least made it a bit easier for you guys, whereas Microsoft is not as simple and easy. But anyways, yeah, you guys have seen the portable media center, iRiver. Same thing, it has the same kind of interface, so I don't need to show you guys, but I can show you what it has. Is a headphone jack right here, DC in. It has a removable battery here, so that part comes off. It's kind of cool. Just one of the side grips comes off. Come back on. Okay, there we go. Yep, it's got this little grippy thing at the back. Designed by Inno. Designed for Windows Mobile. So the thing is that The Media Center operating system is derived from Windows CE, which was used in the Pocket PCs of yesteryear. And so yeah, this thing does have a lot in common with Pocket PCs. And so yeah, if you have a Pocket PC or a Windows XP computer running Windows Media Center, then perhaps you want to pick one of these up. So if you like, I guess the people still running are probably still nostalgic, still running Windows XP and then Portable Media Center. But anyways, it's pretty cool. The iRiver PMC 120 came out in, I think, 2005. Yep. Okay, so the Viliv is actually running full Windows XP Home Edition. And the reason why I put this here with the iRiver is because this is really, really good at playing videos and movies as well. Even though it's an ultra mobile PC, it's a UMPC, but since it has the GMA 500 in it, which means it runs the Intel Atom processor, it actually can decode a lot of 720p files. Maybe not full HD, but 720p files I think it can do. And what's better than the PMC is that whereas the PMC only plays Windows Media supported files, since this is a full Windows operating system, it can play pretty much any file. Just use VLC and then download a couple codecs and you're good to go. So you can play pretty much anything. And yeah, I would say this is more of a PMP slash UMPC hybrid kind of device right here, which is pretty cool. So yeah, you have standard buttons here. Okay, go back and switch screens, I think. And this is a little nub here for moving around. Menu button. This is a touch screen, so that's how you navigate. And on the side here it has expansion slot, USB, and mini USB. Yep. On this side here it has full power button and removable battery, I think. Yeah, I think this will be a removable battery. Okay, that's cool. Is this a stylus right here? Not sure what that is. No, don't think I can take that out. Okay, top here, volume knob, rocker right here, speakers, headphone jack. Bottom is just vents. So there you have it. It's a Viliv S5, weighs about 1 pound, so relatively light. Has a 4.8-inch screen here, and good for watching movies and stuff. Not so good for doing other stuff because it has the Intel Atom processor, which means it's not very powerful, but I think for viewing like 720 movies it should be fine. And this thing is like 30 gigs, I think, and 1 gig of RAM, I believe, so it's comparable to the other UMPCs of its time. This came back in 2007. No, wait, 2009, I think, actually. This is a bit newer than that. But yeah, the Viliv, iRiver, both Korean companies, both making similar devices. Okay, what do we have next? Alright, we have a big guy here. This is the Asus R2H. Wow, this thing is heavy. This thing weighs about over 2 pounds, which makes it my heaviest UMPC that I have. 2 pounds, wow. 7-inch screen. Has an Intel Celeron M processor, which is actually lower powered than Atom, because an Atom is originally derived from a Celeron M. So this one, Celeron M 900 MHz, is pretty underpowered. 1.2 megapixel webcam. I think this thing has 768 megabytes of RAM. Kind of weird, but it has that, less than 1 gig. Fingerprint reader, always nice to have. Left click and right click mouse buttons. Scrolling screen here. Then you have the context menu. And then you have the mouse and microphone up here, up and down, and another menu switch thing here. There's some indicator lights. Designed for Windows XP, and Celeron M inside. Okay. What else do we have up here? Whole bunch of buttons here. Power button, and this is a login button. Okay, login and wireless. Well, that's interesting. It has a separate button for login. I've never seen that before. Wireless SD card slot, hold button, USB full size, and AV out, which is can be used from multi-out, I guess, for a composite output. We have a nice kickstand at the back, which is something it shares in common with the Samsung Q1. pretty nice, and the Pepper Pad 3. So it just sits up like this if you want to watch something. Okay. Bottom, we have I think a removable. This is for removable battery. Yeah, and that's it, I think. And then over here we have another micro USB. And then down here over on this side we have full-size Ethernet, expansion port slot, another USB, which makes for a total of 2, quite good for UMPC, separate mic and headphone input jacks, and DC in. This thing is heavy, and it's not very powerful, so it's not really, I don't think this one is really that great. I'd actually rather take my Viliv. I mean, this one runs Intel Atom, which is newer than the Celeron M, and 1 gig of RAM, more than this one, much lighter, 1 pound versus 2 pounds. Doesn't have a kickstand, but hey, it's more portable, so I don't know. The 7-inch, if you really want to watch movies and stuff, why not just go for why not just go for the OQO 7? I have that as well. The OQO 7, right? And compare that, same size screen, except the OQO 7 is way lighter and holds 320 gigs, whereas this thing, I think this thing holds only like 30 gigs, not that much. So this one came out in 2007. There is a newer one called the Asus R50A, which I don't have, but it's very, very similar to the Viliv S5. So if you've seen the Viliv S5, the Asus R50A is very, very similar to that. So no point in really getting that. It's basically the same Atom processor and RAM and everything. And this thing is pretty interesting. It's kind of rare, but I don't know. I have it to complete my collection, but basically this one's not as useful as some of my other ones. I can compare it to where's my other 7-inch UMPCs here? Here we go. Samsung Q1, also with a kickstand. Okay, so you can compare it to the Samsung Q1. Asus, about the same size. The Asus is heavier. Samsung Q1 has a split keyboard, whereas the Asus is a full touchscreen. So yeah, both have kickstands, but I would take the Samsung Q1. I think this one has a better processor too. Even this one actually has a Core Solo processor. Fingerprint reader, still there. But I get my full QWERTY keypad and more RAM, lighter. Yeah, I'm taking the Samsung Q1 over the Asus R2H. The other one, I would even take it over the HTC Shift, even I would take over the Asus R2H. And if you look at this one, the the HTC Shift, which I've shown you guys before as well. This one goes up and flips up like that. Okay. Oh, so you guys can see more. Okay. So yeah, HTC Shift, also a 7-incher, but this one has a 800 megahertz Intel A110, slightly, I think not better actually, but similar to the Celeron M in performance. But having this full QWERTY keypad is really nice. Much better than having the Asus's laggy touchscreen. So this one is still the heaviest. So Asus R2H still the heaviest, then the HTC Shift, then the Samsung Q1. So those are my 7-inch UMPCs, and then my PMP, my 7-inch PMP, the OQO 7, which I would take over all of these on top of that, just because of how good it is at doing what it does, which is playing video. Okay, so that's almost all the UMPCs that I've reviewed. So, okay, Viliv S5. What else do we have? Toshiba Libretto. Oops. Toshiba Libretto. Fujitsu UH20. You guys have seen all these. I'm showing the mini version of the HTC Shift, the HTC Advantage. Actually, Windows Mobile PC, not a UMPC. Sony VAIO UX, and Fujitsu UH10. I also have the Sony VAIO P. It's very, very similar to this. And What else do I have? Sharpsaurus. I can just compare it to all these different devices I have, just to give you a size comparison. Sharp Netwalker, it's a mini netbook type of thing right there. And just to give you an even smaller version of this, something with a kickstand. There we go, Nokia N810, even smaller than that. Well, what do you know? So you have like smallest, from smallest to largest, smallest and lightest, Nokia N810, and then the Sharp Netwalker and Sharpsaurus, Sony VAIO P, and Viliv. And then next up we have Fujitsu's, and the 7-inchers are the heaviest and largest after that. And one more, I think I have the, ooh. Alright, and another thing I want to show you guys is the OQO Model 2 in the docking station running Windows 7, which is pretty cool. I haven't shown you guys the docking station yet, which is pretty cool. It's an extra accessory for the OQO Model 2. It gives an optical drive right here, slot loading. You got a nice USB port right here. And on the back you have 2 more USB ports, the power adapter, full-size Ethernet right here, headphone jack, VGA, and HDMI, which is pretty nice. And yeah, it's running full Windows 7, as you can see. I basically made it run Windows 7 because it came with Windows Vista Ultimate installed, which basically just slowed the computer down so much. Because this is not a fast PC, it has a VSC7M processor, very, very slow. So you can compare the OQO Model 2 in its dock with the Sony VAIO UX in its dock. I don't know if I showed you guys this before, but yeah, 2 USB ports, VGA, full-size Ethernet, power adapter, almost the same as the OQO except without the slot loading drive. But it's kind of cute actually. Yeah, the VAIO UX in its little cradle, and the OQO Model 2 in its little cradle here, and it's very, very adjustable too. You can adjust it like that. It's very cool. And this is also, both of these are very, very similar sized PCs, but the OQO is a bit lighter and more pocketable, I think. So yeah, there you have it. There you have most of my UMPCs, the VAIO, UX, OQO Model 2, iRiver, bunch of my PMCs and Fujitsu's, and Samsung, all my 7-inchers right here, which are like the heaviest. So basically from lightest to heaviest right there. The OQO being probably one of the lightest UMPCs that I have. Only 4.5-inch screen and less than a pound. And the Viliv comes very, very close. You can see very, very close to the OQO in size. Not as light still, and doesn't have a full-size keyboard, but very, very close. Okay, so there's one more UMPC I want to show you guys. The last one, I promise. And it's a pretty rare one. This is the Vulcan Flip Start. And I've been looking for this UMPC for a very long time, and I finally found one on eBay. So it's pretty rare. I'll show you guys. The specs are Pentium M processor, 1.1 gigahertz, and 512 megabytes of RAM, which is very small. That's the weakness of this PC. I think the biggest weakness is that you cannot upgrade the RAM at all. At least the OQO has 1 gig, and the Sony VAIO has 1 gig, but the Vulcan Flipstar only has 512 megs, which is not a lot. That's why I can only run Windows XP. But the interesting thing about this UMPC is it has a little small screen up here, kind of like Windows Slideshow, but it basically just shows some calendar and email stuff up there. And it's a clamshell. Yeah, it's kind of like this mini laptop form factor here, which is different than the sliding form factor of the OQO and the VAIO UX. It's got a clamshell form factor, which is pretty interesting. So yeah, here it has a Pentium M processor, which is actually more powerful than Intel Atom. And so the processor itself isn't bad. I just think the RAM is limiting. 30 gigabyte hard drive right here, and came out in 2007, so around the same time as these guys too. I think this was 2006, 2007. And yeah, other than that, runs Windows XP, and a little webcam down here, 5.6-inch screen, weighs pretty hefty, Let's see. So you got your mouse cursor right here, another touchpad. In addition to this mouse track point nub here, you have a touchpad. So you have two different ways to use a mouse. Pretty cool. Power button right here. Control Alt Delete has its own button. That's pretty interesting. Then you have your up down, which also doubles as your home and page up, page down buttons. Left and right click right there, and a full-size QWERTY keyboard. Pretty cool. Has some interesting other stuff here as well, which is like zoom, switch windows, desktop. Interesting, and some media playback buttons down there. But yeah, weighs about 1.7, 1.8 pounds with the extended battery, I think. So it's definitely not light. It's not as light as the OQO or Sony VAIO UX. So definitely keep that in mind. It's let's see the ports we have. We have a play, pause, and forward and backwards. Here, rewind and fast forward buttons right on the player, right on the laptop itself. Interesting. This is the volume slider, I'm guessing, and this unmarked button here. Not sure what that does. Headphone jack on the back, dock connector, AC adapter jack, USB port, just one. On the side here, nothing. And on the back, no, oh, we've seen the back. Okay, that's it actually. No micro SD card slot, no fingerprint reader. Kind of disappointing. I will show you guys the dock connector here. Not as good as the dock connector on these guys though. Alright, so if you put in the dock connector here, okay, what do we get? We have an extra VGA port, DC in. This is a, what is this, surround port or something? It's something for audio. Haven't really used that. Ethernet, full size, 2 USB ports. So yeah, kind of underwhelming in terms of ports, but what can you do? Flip Start is still one of the rarest. I think it took me a long time. I was scouring eBay for months and months before I could find this one. And it's one of the more, I think, well-known UMPCs that came out. So yeah, with the Flip Start now in my collection, I have almost all the popular UMPCs out now. I think with the exception of only a few. I think I'm only missing the Rayon Digital Everrun, the Working Hambit Pepperpad 3, Kojinsha, a few other ones, Korean and Japanese ones, the Y-Brain or WeBrain or whatever. So there's only a few like Korean, Japanese UMPCs that I'm missing, but for the most part, I think I have all of them. And that's a pretty good accomplishment in my opinion. I have all these UMPCs up. I think there is. Here's a bigger one I didn't want to show, but the Sony VAIO P right here, which is going to be my biggest one, like right next to there. Alright, so there we go. So yeah, that's all the UMPCs that I have now. As you can see, guys, have a whole bunch of them. Toshiba, Libretto, Fujitsu, Sony VAIO, some other ones down here. Now the Vulcan Flip Start as well, the Viliv, the OQO Model 2 Sony VAIO. Okay, so yeah, that's all my UMPCs, and once again, thanks for watching my videos. If you like my gadget reviews, or if you like my collection, then please subscribe, like my videos, and as always, thanks for watching. Let me know if you guys have any comments about these guys or these devices. I'll try to answer them as best as I can.